Hello, this is Paul Solentrop of Wichita State University Strategic Communications. Thank you for listening to the Roundhouse podcast. We always appreciate your time. Our guest today is former Shocker Xavier Bell. He joins us to discuss life in professional basketball and his time with the Shockers. Xavier is a 6'2" guard. He played at Andover Central High School, where he was Kansas Mr. Basketball. He played 3 seasons at Wichita State. As a senior in 2024-25, he earned American Conference Men's Basketball Scholar Athlete of the Year honors. He was an all-conference pick after averaging 15.2 points for the Shockers and helping them to the NIT. Xavier most recently played in Europe's Georgian Superleague, and I'm going to lean on Xavier to check me on pronunciations here. I'll give it a try for Basketball Club Kavkazia. Am I close?
It's close.
Okay.
It's close.
He averaged 13.3 points, 4.7 rebounds, and 2.8 assists for Kavkazia. The Georgian Super League is an 11-team league, and his team was based in Tbilisi. Can I get that close?
Yeah.
Capital
Tbilisi,
of Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, pro basketball. Describe the experience for us.
I think it's probably pretty much everything anyone would kind of imagine and then some. Definitely takes a lot more, self-awareness and just self, I guess, will to want to work and continue to get better and just do the right thing, especially now that you have a lot more time on your hands when no one's watching or, you're not around, a close-knit group like a college team or something like that. So definitely just a little more, self-reliant, but at the same time, I think it's a little more, freeing to kind of realize that, okay, now I really am able to do something that I really love and want to pursue. So just kind of putting, my best foot forward each and every day and trying to set myself up in every way possible, whether that is on the court or off the court.
I'm sure people would be interested in the process of landing on a team. So you finish up your college career, you work with an agency and they place you. Tell us how that all works.
Definitely. So I actually had to switch agencies from when I recently left Wichita State to my time being out my first year. But yes, it's definitely just about, really, really, really finding, a trustworthy and reliable person that'll kind of, do the due diligence for you as a player, especially right after college and getting you workouts and getting your names into the right rooms and, who knows what opportunities could come from that. But definitely in these times, like right now, even, more so after this first season, I'm definitely just kind of relying heavily on my agent and the networks and stuff that he has, as well as, the stuff that I've done on the court. But, I think it's just more so about, just making sure you network as a player, so that way, if there ever is a time and you're fortunate enough that, you may never you don't have to have an agent or you can kind of exclude the agent and reach out to teams yourself. So, but that definitely, takes time and persistence and consistency to just continue to work at it and continue to better yourself as a player and as an individual.
Did you have a checklist of things that were important? I want this kind of country or this level of play. How did you approach it from kind of your wish list, I guess?
Man, honestly, obviously every kid wishes, they can have the ideal story of, having a great college career, some way, shape, or form, getting into, some type of NBA summer league and finding your way on a team like that, man. But yeah, it's definitely just about, just sticking with it, man, and just realizing that, you don't know what the future holds, and so really just leaning in on my supported circle, my trusted circle, old coaches, old teammates, and former teammates and older teammates who have gone down these similar routes and everything like that, and just knowing that everybody's journey is different, so you just got to trust your own path and your own process and just continue to show up every day and I think for me specifically it was about just knowing and really trusting, and even now to this day trusting that it'll all work out exactly how it's supposed to. If I just continue to show up and just keep leading with faith and with the right intentions and doing everything that I need to do every single day, I think, time is on my side and it will, everything that I've done will come to fruition.
Let's give people a little geography lesson. Georgia is a former Soviet republic. Population almost 4 million. It's on the coast of the Black Sea. Yeah, and your team, as we said, located in Tbilisi, which is the largest city in the country. It's described as where Europe meets Asia. Tell us about life in Tbilisi.
Oh man, I think it's probably the general European experience. I think I got a little bit of different feel, especially being out there from September till about April or so. So really having to dive into that culture and just understand that it's not necessarily a 2-week vacation getaway or something like that. This is everyday life. So really understanding how they go to the grocery store, how groceries are bought, or just the way of living, you're for real, and then essentially diving into that culture from a hands-on perspective through my teammates and my coaches, and really just embracing everything that they were showing me, that they were telling me, from their language to the different foods and everything that they have. They had some really, really good food, so that was a plus. The cost of living wasn't as it is here, definitely a lot cheaper, so that was easy to save money. But at the same time, it made everything else a little more easier. Ordering food, going to sightsee, getting around to different little monuments or stuff they had in the city and everything like that. But my time out there, it was great, man. It was nothing short of a blessing. Definitely an experience and a perspective shifter, just as far as understanding that there's so much more to the world, and there's so much more to do and so much more to see and so many more people to meet and connect with. So just really just understanding where you are, being appreciative where you are, and just trying to make the most of it.
It looks beautiful based on the 5-minute YouTube video that I watched about Georgia. Did you get homesick?
I did, man. Definitely, especially being out there for so long, and with it being my first year. But I really do credit I don't want to say myself, but essentially just my trusted circle for allowing me to pursue a smaller Division I college in Philadelphia, which is Drexel University. Right out of high school, I was 18 years old. First time I really been away from home and lived on my own. Yes, I there are ways where I could have gotten back home at any point, but it was just the principle behind it, and really moving away and just kind of embracing that, and then essentially fast forward into this time. Now it was more so just kind of a reminder that I've done it before, and that I get to play basketball at the end of the day. So really diving into that, and just knowing that the only way out of it is through it. So just doing what I need to do each and every day, and like I said earlier, just being appreciative of it, and sooner or later I'll get back home whenever that is. But just trying to make the most of where I am.
So the year at Drexel prepared you for being away from home.
Definitely. Just as far as the getting over that homesickness, or when that homesickness feeling does come, knowing that it'll pass too, and that I'll be able to get home in some way, shape, or form eventually.
Tell us about the food. What was the adjustment like in that area?
It was different at first, obviously, just because I didn't know so much. But once I got around, a couple of different little restaurants that they had, and my teammates pointed me in some directions, and then we were going out as a team. And the cool thing about out there is we'll have road games, and road games in college, you stay in hotels and everything like that, and then you'll have a hotel dinner and everything like that. And man, overseas where I was, the dinners that we had and food that we had, it was all like real food and cooked and served hot, and that was great. And the food was really good. They had these oversized little dumplings that they're called like kinkalis, or then they had like this. It's crazy, man. Like some of the stuff that I was eating out there, like I probably wouldn't even think twice to really eat it out over here. Like it's bread. It's basically just like a bread, but it's cut in like a pizza slice, and it has cheese in the middle of it. It's called I think like hachapoi or something like that. These different names or something like that. But just little stuff like that is very rich in their culture. And so once I was really introduced to stuff like that, and started to really taste it, and then my teammates came around and try it with this or do something with that. That was it really was some of the best food that I've had, and I mean, even to this day, like I wouldn't mind, having a meal or two from Georgia. So, but I think on a daily basis, when I wasn't doing all that, I was able to find a little more foods that are kind of closer to home, so like a chicken Alfredo or like some chicken tenders or some type of chicken sandwich, something like that I was able to eat, or eggs in the morning for breakfast. So it was really just about adapting to where I was and really just trying to make the most of it.
Who was the veteran who helped you get adjusted to all that?
My roommate, he wasn't, from there, but this is his third year pro, I think now. Me and him talked a lot. He shared a lot of different, stories and just kind of opened my eyes to really see and understand that, this is life now, and we really have to, lean into it rather than away. And I would say, him and, maybe 2 or 3, local teammates of mine that really, we just kind of, clicked with each other like brothers, man. It was crazy, obviously battling on the court and, getting a feel for them that way, but then just realizing, understanding that, we're all people. So just talking with them in the locker rooms after practice, sharing, little memes or messages and stuff like that on social media, after practice and everything like that. That all kind of, played into everything, I would say, and really kind of, helped me have a season that I did so far off the court, I would say.
How does the practice routine, the workout routine and games, how does that compare to college basketball?
Definitely, from where I just was, Wichita State and the collegiate, I would say, gridiron is definitely a little different than the overseas routines and everything, especially here. We'll wake up early, we might have a lift or some sort, and then right after that lift we're walking out to the court. And it was the same dynamic over there. We would have a lift at a certain time. Right after the lift, go upstairs, get taped and practice. But just the intensity, I would say, from how hard we practice here to the number of games, to maybe who we're playing against, and even those atmospheres, and even the fans playing into it and causing that type of dynamic to a game. It was totally different over there, because I think over here, my last year, we may have played somewhere in the range of 30 to 35 games or so. That obviously including postseason and everything like that. I'm not sure what it is from non-conference to the end of conference before postseason, but I do know where I just was. It was only a total of 20 games, and so we had a little bit of a quite amount of time of like break time, I would say, but we did do like some off the record like tournaments with obviously the other local teams and everything like that. And so we worked a lot, and we definitely ran a lot. We didn't run as much as we would have ran in Wichita State, but we did get close. I would say probably closer than any other team in that league. But just where I was comparing that level to like a Wichita State and what genuinely what they just did this last season as well without me, it's a little different in a sense of a good thing, towards Wichita State, rather than, it's not necessarily dropping to that level of play, but just realizing that there are levels to it, and that, collegiate basketball does set you up and prepare you for, a lot more things than you realize when you get out there, I would say. Mm-hmm.
What was the highlight of your season?
Making an all-star team my first year out there. It was they had released they let like the fans decide or whatever like that. And so, a lot of locals who are familiar with maybe some Americans who have been there before obviously voted for them as well. But then, a couple of head coaches in the league got choices to pick and everything like that. And the day before we found out or had a game, like my head coach had texted me personally, just letting me know that he vouched for me and put me in there and picked me to be an all-star. So that definitely felt really good to hear and to see, and especially in that time, it was maybe around January-ish where I think I want to say my dad actually just left. Yeah, they had been. My dad and them were actually able to come out there for about a week or so in January. And literally right after they left, I think that next week I found out I made the All-Star team. So it was really cool just to kind of experience that and to see all that kind of goes into that from a European side of things and how they kind of celebrate those guys and how that whole deal is ran. So who knows what my future holds, but if there ever is a situation or instance where I'm able and fortunate enough to make an all-star an all-star selection again, I have a little bit more of an understanding of what could kind of go down. So that was definitely probably the highlight of my moment, is making an all-star selection.
It's a significant accomplishment.
Thank you.
Yeah, so your dad was able to come over and visit. That had to be a really nice opportunity.
It was. So my dad and my stepmom got out there in January. I have a girlfriend who got out there before them in November. It was good to see her. And then my sister, my oldest sister, came out probably before I had just under a month before I got back, right at the end of March, and she got out there only for about 4 days, but it was so good just to see all of them and just be reminded of home and just know that however long this journey has been, how many times I did get homesick, or I wake up like, man, who knows when I'll be able to really get home. And with the postseason as well, it was so hard to tell when I'll be able to get back. So not really having a clear date of when I'll be able to get back until the week of me coming back. It was definitely just a kind of a sense of like motivation to kind of just keep going, and that like I just said, I'm getting closer to the end just to finish strong for sure.
It sounds like the whole family and yourself approached it with an open mind. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to experience it.
Absolutely.
And it went pretty well then.
Absolutely.
That's great to hear. Okay, I've heard a lot of stories over the years about the crowds, chanting, singing. I think I've heard a couple stories about fireworks going off.
Yeah.
Do you have a crazy crowd story from the league?
So actually, man, we didn't really run into too many crazy crowds, but it was funny. Like one of the times we did run into a heavy crowd, or a game with a heavy crowd presence. It was the game my dad actually was out there and got to see before he left. It was an away game, and so the way they kind of do stuff out there is yes, Tbilisi is a main city. You got other main cities kind of in Georgia, but the smaller cities, they call those villages. So we were in this one little tournament. It's called a Georgian Cup, where every team starts out and plays a team in the league under us, and then we'll play somebody else obviously in our same league and kind of advance through the tournament like that. But anyway, first game was away, and the team under us, it was called Caspi, and my dad and them were able to come, and the gym was maybe a high school gym as far as bleachers only on one side and super packed in. And sure enough, man, that town filled up that gym for as small as it was, and somebody in there was banging on drums, and the game was actually a close game, and it's loud in there, and I look up a couple times, and I barely am able to. I see my dad kind of in the mix, but he's all in it, embracing it, and standing and screaming, and it was really cool just to see him and for them to experience that, and it was funny just because that was the very first fan presence that I had, and they were there too, because after they had left and actually were able to come back to the States, that's all he could talk about maybe for 2 months was man, do you remember that loud drum they kept banging on? And it was funny though, but that was probably the biggest crowd presence I would say I had. Other than that, our games, we actually played in a really we played in the same gym that the Georgian national team plays in, so it was actually a really big arena. So it was I wouldn't say harder, just not very many people showed up for our team as to oppose. Like when I was out there were 2 FIBA breaks and the national team played out there twice. And first time I was actually able to go out there. Second time I was planning on it, slipped my mind, wasn't able to make it. But just the first time being over there, I was actually able to really see where we played, that whole arena, filled up for the national team, it was a really nice, sight to see, and, everybody was out. It was a really good atmosphere for sure. So,
who was the best player you played against
out there? I would say this one 4-man who his team actually ended up winning the league, and I don't know if you can see it on that map, but they're from a spot over there called Batumi, near one of the coasts. But his name was like Myron Thomas, older than me. I want to say maybe this is his between second and fourth year overseas or so, but they had a really good team, really good locals, and he was just a slimmer 4 who could, put it on the floor, step out a little bit, and shoot it a little bit too. So that probably gave us our biggest headaches of the season. And I would probably just give it to him, honestly. I actually think he ended up winning maybe the MVP of the finals just this past season. So,
thank you for pointing out. I do have a map here. Batumi, yes, you're right. It's right on the Black Sea coast. I did a little bit of preparation.
Yeah.
Georgia's located in an interesting spot in the world. Borders Russia on one side, Turkey, Armenia, not far from Ukraine.
Hi, this is Rick Muma, president of Wichita State University. Check out the latest episode of the Forward Together podcast. Each episode, I sit down with different guests from Shocker Nation to celebrate the vision and mission of Wichita State University. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Plans for next season, how do those unfold over the summer?
Yeah, it kind of just goes back to, I think the topic we talked about a little bit ago, just as far as the agencies and that time right now. I've actually, the switch, the agent that I'm with now, we have had a number of great conversations and have been talking with a number of teams right now. So it's definitely kind of in that time frame where it's heavy as far as teams reaching out, and we're reaching out to teams as well. And so I should probably have a destination or so and sign somewhere maybe within, I would say going long, I would say the next month or so, and hopefully, sooner than that. But I do know we talked, I want to say Saturday, me and my agent, and we'll probably talk again sometime this week. The NBA draft was just yesterday, so, we're watching that, and obviously keeping a close ear to teams in the States as well, but just realizing, the situation that we're in and understanding that, it may end up being overseas again this year, and just preparing and really waiting and just trying to find the right opportunity. We're still sorting through everything right now.
How much are you able to direct or control as far as, hey, I'd like to play in Spain, or I'd like to go to Central America? Is any of that under your control, or is it?
Yeah. So it is, and definitely I think for players, it's more so like, yes, it's what do you want to do and where do you want to play and where do you see yourself fit, and then I would say just about finding the right agent to start off with in that market or in those markets, and that'll kind of get you off the ground and get you in the right positions right now. And in my case, is since I did have to start over in Europe, and we'll likely be doing year 2 over there, it's more so just about finding the right situation and making sure we're in the right, or we're taking the right steps and making sure, hey, we just played here, but, we're going to play here, and it's not a step down. Instead, it's a step. It could even be a lateral step, or it could be, a step forward. But just want to make sure, we're stepping in the right direction. So it's just about really sorting through those. But yes, I do have a say in where I want to play, and more so it's just about kind of being realistic with myself, but at the same time being as honest as I can be, and realizing like, hey, this guy, mainly his clientele is all over kind of in Europe, and if that isn't the States, that might be the best, case for me right now. So let's focus on that. Or, hey, this guy may have, a little more pull in the States. Okay, cool. This is where we're actually trying to go. Like, let's stick with this guy and run with that. So it's more so, like I just said, just about really the player and really where it is that you want to play, and then finding that right person that'll help you get to where you're trying to go.
So different agents or agencies would have different geographic specialties or areas that they're in. That makes sense. Most leagues, tell me if this is correct, may have a limit on United States players. Is that right? Maybe 3 or 4 on a roster. Is that how it works?
Yes. So I am not too sure, obviously, on every single league. But I can say that where I just came from, I don't know if the limit was 4 on our team, but we only kept 4 Americans on our team. And we were only able to play 3 at a time on the court. But even talking to my roommate, it's very different, compared to country to country or wherever you go. So I'm only just going to speak for what I just came from, and say, yes, we only had 4 Americans on our team all year, and we're only able to play 3, at a time during the game. But we didn't have any, minute restriction or, anything like that. It was just, you can only play 3 at a time and stuff like that. So
let's look back at your time as a Shocker. 3 seasons as a Shocker. Where do you feel like you improved the most? What did you get out of the experience?
Honestly, man, just continuing just to find myself and just, grow into that and just grow into, the confidence that carries me, in everything that I do. I think it was more so just about, just getting back to my roots and realizing that this is home and just, believing in myself and believing in every single thing that got me to the collegiate level as far as basketball, and then leaning back on that to see, and to really, appreciate, that where it's brought me, to even from Drexel to Wichita State and then all that I was able to do at Wichita State, and then even now to being able to still play after Wichita State. I think it's just been, it really has just been a testament to my faith, and really just, my work ethic, just to continue to show up, each and every day, and I think, God will take care of the rest for sure. Favorite moments as a Shocker? I really would say, man, just honestly, yes, it was crazy, in my 3 years, in a sense of like the different locker rooms that I had each year, from players to players and even coaches to coaches. But honestly, man, I loved every single player that came through there. Whether we talked a lot, we talked a little. There was never not a time where, when I was in that locker room that, we didn't fail to make every single person on that team at least feel like a brother, and, whether we hung out after practice or, like I said, talked after practice a lot, the times and the laughs and the memories shared, after practice, during practices, man, that tops everything. And then essentially, game wise, it was crazy, just to be from Wichita and be able to, make it to the NIT my last year. That is something that I cherish. But at the same time, I really, really, really enjoyed playing K-State and beating them here my senior year, and that was the last time I was going to ever play K-State. I knew that, and to just kind of go out like that, and get the win like that meant something to me for sure.
Okay, that was a game I thought maybe you had mentioned. Would have also beaten Memphis. Would have beaten Minnesota.
Definitely.
Kind of a dramatic win down in Florida.
Yeah.
That was Harlan Beverly, right? That hit the shot that bounced about 77 times and then went in.
Yeah, it was.
That's quite the moment. Okay, yeah, when I thought about the Kansas State game, the Shockers are up 9, and you get the ball out. I guess it was after a turnover, maybe. and 2 minutes 40 seconds to go, I thought, well, he's going to just pull it out and run clock, and that was not your intention. So you drove to the basket, scored, got fouled, 3-point play, and that pretty much ended the game. Is that a moment that you would think back on?
Absolutely. I think that just kind of it just reiterates us, solidifying that moment and understanding that this really is kind of my last go round at K-State, but essentially just in Koch Arena. So, that game, it was super, super special to me, with it being, the last game going into our Christmas break for us at the time. But essentially, man, just even the other games that you just mentioned, that my last year here was super, super special. And we had a number of games that, not only myself contributed to, but just us as a team. It was special, and with that group of guys, it really meant something to me, and I hold that, I hold a special place for that in my heart, for sure.
Yeah, what signs of success did you see as a senior that then carried over into last season when the Shockers kind of continued to progress along the way?
Honestly, man, just the going through the ebbs and flows of the season. I think last year for them, it was mainly, they were doing really good in the non-conference early. Then they had that Bahamas trip and all that had happened. But then even from that, man, they were still able to, turn their whole season around, write their own narrative. I couldn't remember how many times, I hop on Twitter and unintentionally, I'll just see some, irrelevant comment or something like that. And, we swipe past it and don't mind it. But then you look up and, man, they're competing now to, they're one game away from the NCAA tournament. Then okay, that didn't happen, but still they're one game away from now the NIT Final Four. So I think that team last year, and this isn't a knock at us, but I think that team last year definitely wanted to continue to play and wanted to show something, wanted to prove something, wanted to just continue to move this program in the right direction, which it has been under the leadership of Paul Mills. But I think last year's team and that group of guys definitely maybe wanted it a little more than my last year. But it honestly is just still, I think my year to last year and even to this year, it's just a testament to the head in charge, which I just mentioned is Paul Mills. But I think, he just wants it, not for himself, but, for Wichita, for his players, for the fans. And I think, if that does happen and when that does happen, I think it'll be, so special, not only to him, but to just everyone, who has been a part of it and who's been around it and who's gotten, to help along the way. I think it'll mean so much to so many, for sure.
So one of the Shockers who played a big role in last season's success was T.J. Williams. You would have been a senior when he was a freshman, and he was you would have practiced with him. He was injured, so he did not play, but you would have seen him in practices. Describe T.J.
He's like my little brother, man. We still text and talk. To this day, we were texting, a lot and sending a bunch of messages during my time overseas. But, me and him, he's obviously I'm so many years older than him, but, we've always just been kind of in the same gyms. So I'll be on a AAU team and he'll be on the younger version of that team, or then, so it's not, he knew, what he was doing and he knows himself. And I think he has a really, really good support system in his parents and in his close circle around him to kind of steer him in the right direction and to, continue to just, put the best in him so he's able to put the best out, into the world. And I think, just seeing that and like you just said, getting a chance to really, mess with them a lot in practice and even, go at him a lot in practice when he was able to go. Yes, he didn't play, but practice is a time of trial and error. And so just seeing that and realizing that, man, this kid is, he didn't play. This was just his first year last year. And, he still has so many years and he's still so so young, and he's already, you know, what he is now. The sky is the limit for him, and it just makes me so proud just to see, you know, that he is continuing on his journey, and that he, you know, believes in himself, and that, you know, he's coming into the player that he needs to be and on his time. And, you know, to me, just being from Wichita especially as well, I think, you know, that's something that just makes me proud as a player, but essentially as a Wichita native, just to see, you know, yes, you know, not only myself, but it's possible for so many others that just, you know, put themselves out there and just continue to try and continue to work hard, and, you know, who knows, you know, what's in store for them. So for TJ, he had a really, really good last season. I think it'll only continue to go up, you know, no matter, you know, what comes, what hardships, you know, stand in his way. I think, you know, he's the type of player and person that really will figure out, you know, all that he needs to get wherever he's trying to go.
TJ, as you mentioned, also a local kid, went to Heights High School and had a really good redshirt freshman year. Another shocker in the news, Craig Porter Jr., the Cavaliers will bring him back for a fourth season, so he would have been a senior when you arrived at Wichita State. What got Craig Porter Jr. into the NBA?
You know, Craig obviously was just a unique player, man, especially, you know, being, you know, all that he was from the point guard spot, and leading maybe the nation in blocks, and the conference in blocks, and the team in blocks, and, you know, just being just such an effective player, you know, off the dribble and one-on-one situations and late clock situations, and at the same time, you know, essentially naturally just finding the right player, you know, with the right pass, or, you know, just making the right reads and everything. You know, I think, you know, Craig definitely, you know, had it all. From an ideal player or guard standpoint, and it's more so it was just about, you know, just, you know, fine tuning and molding it, which, you know, he did in his time here at Wichita State with, you know, the number of games and the legacy he left, and which translated obviously all the way to the NBA, and which led him now to being able to be brought on for his fourth year, and, you know, who knows what'll come from that. But Craig has just, you know, gotten better each and every year, and it was just, you know, it was just a blessing for me to be able to, you know, come back when I did, and I didn't play as much, yes, but, you know, I still practiced as much, and, you know, was still around that, and able to really see and kind of get a feel and an idea for, okay, you know, guys like that, or guys like this, or, you know, a player like Craig, it's nothing short of possible for me if I continue just to, you know, lean into my own craft and just follow, you know, the blueprint of, and I've said it, you know, a number of times already today, but just showing up every single day and putting my best foot forward, and then, you know, essentially letting everything else fall into place for sure.
Showing up is that's good advice. Okay, you've been around Coke Arena this summer. You worked basketball camps. You played some pickup games. I'm sure the fans would love to hear some of your impressions of some of the newcomers. What do you think?
Definitely. They're all really, really cool, man. They're all very personable, you know, basketball players at the end of the day, but, you know, just college kids, man, and just trying to, you know, make a name for themselves. You know, got all the energy in the world. Love hanging around kids. They do, and I just think, you know, like I said earlier, under the direction that they have now with Paul Mills as the coach, I think, you know, he won't disappoint in getting that team, you know, where they need to be in order to play and act like a team on that court in a number of different situations. So just, you know, being able to experience them and them allowing me to come in and play with them, it kept me young for sure. But, you know, it just reminded me, and just, you know, just of that close knit of a brotherhood and of a family that, you know, that they'll have, and that I hope that they can get to as far as this season to come and everything forward for sure.
The one that I've seen the most when I've popped in and out of practices or pickup that's kind of been fun to watch, Jahari Long, about a 6'4" guard. Describe his game.
Yeah. He is what I'm told. I think he's one of the older players, but you know, he's been around a number of different colleges, and essentially with that, just a number of different rooms of good basketball, I should say. So him, being the player that he is, and with the experience that he has, I think it's more so just I think it should be a reminder or maybe a testament to fans that a player like him, even though he's been around so much basketball, he's still continuing to show up every single day on his own when fans aren't in here. And I think, that just should be a reminder to fans that, these players really are working, and that, they want to, put the best out there, for the city of Wichita. And I think, the city of Wichita would love that and would show in return, show their appreciation by, coming to games and showing their support, which they always have done, for Shocker basketball, for sure.
Jahari is a transfer from George Mason, also played at Maryland. I would describe him as he plays the game at the pace he wants to play the game at, kind of an old man's game. But he gets where he wants to go and seems to have a real good court sense.
Definitely.
Okay, Xavier Bell, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Roundhouse Podcast, courtesy of Wichita State University Strategic Communications. We encourage you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can find more Roundhouse content at GoShockers.com.
Hawkins going to go to work on Washington, and it was dug out of there by Bijan Cortez. Lob to Beverly. 7-point lead at the under 8 timeout here at Charles Koch Arena.